In this presentation, we'll introduce what I want to research in assessment 3. It could be divided into 7 parts to illustrate. The media use the agenda citing to emphasize the content between the Chinese and COVID-19 and the beginning of the pandemic. These reports would lead to the public increasing racism discrimination during the COVID-19. All of the Asians look similar. People couldn't know the difference between Chinese and other Asians from the outlook. Thus, the Chinese and Asian people were met with the racism during the COVID-19 pandemic. My proposed research question is Chinese and Asian people were met racism during the COVID-19 pandemic. The aspect of the media content is the reports and news published attitude for Chinese and Asian people in pandemic earlier stage and now. The media organization I will focus on the Australia Sun Herald, 7 News, Sydney Morning Herald, and Daily Telegraph. These media organizations' target audiences is all of the Australian residents, so this media's report and news directly influence those lives in Australia's Chinese and Asian people. Agenda citing is a media concept I will use in my proposed research question. The resource from week 6 required reading will help me explain the agenda citing and how they work in reality. As Jack Boss and Sean offered and believe why mass media using the concept of the agenda citing may not determine what the public think, but it could influence what they believe. Agenda citing was directly reflected at the beginning of last year. I chose this media concept because I saw a report pointed out that racism occurred in Australia. The media played a decisive role. Based on these factors, I believe the agenda citing may affect the public's attitudes. The first method that I will use is a literature review because it is a primary method and all of the research need to use this method. The second method that I will use is textual analysis. It can directly analyze, identify, and find out indirect and potential motives and effects that hide in reports. The Conrad real-world scholarly media research from week 6 required reading. I know that agenda citing involves the public agenda citing, intermedia agenda citing, and political agenda citing. These agenda citings are based on a macro notion of the press. However, its influence on the public agenda was explained on the individual level. For instance, the public was exposed to the media, learned and knew the significant issue in the news. The public will either remember these significant issues and believe these issues are the important issues that our society is facing. Using satire or significant words to be a title or writing a news report will be easier to grab the public's views. The public will, according to these reports, and reflect some actions. It means the more significant topic is in the media. The public will have more opportunities to know and understand the topic, and hence the topic to be important. The public's reflections depend on the outlets that cover the topic. In usual media, positive perceived have a stronger agenda citing effect because the people couldn't counter-argue their information. For instance, in 2020, the COVID-19 outbreak in China, some of the Australian media will use sensitive words to write reports and define the COVID-19 as a Wuhan virus or Chinese virus. These words could help the Australian people to focus on the situation of the COVID-19. This situation for some Australian people has involved a positive report incident. So at the very beginning, the public doesn't have enough against reflections. However, these reports brought about the racial discrimination to some extent. The public's reflection after reading these reports were marked by extreme discrimination. With the discrimination increased, these reports could not be seen as a positive report. Most of the public recognize the seriousness of using sensitive words in a report and have a protest reaction. The following A3 I chose research report to illustrate. The research method I chose textual and literature research means I only read and use key reading materials. According to the UTS ethical guideline, all of the materials readings need annotated citations. In the part of the diversity, because Australia is a diversified country, there are many residents from the different ethnic groups, so I need to find and know the basic knowledge from the different perspectives to avoid offending. And this is a reference list. Thanks for your listening.